my name is Christina Bradshaw and welcome to GA Youth Beyond the Pitch podcast, a series that has been designed and produced by GA Youth Reps, which addresses topics of interest by young people across the GA, LGFA and Camogie Association. Today we are joined by Conor Sweeney, Michael Fennelly and Valerie Wheeler to discuss 2020 GA season, how they in their individual roles have been impacted by COVID-19. For those of you who don't know Conor, he plays his club football with Ballyporeen and is Tipperary's top scorer and captain for 2020. Guiding the Premier County to their first Munster Championship since 1935. After an emotional year, he joins us to discuss what it has all meant to him. Also joining us is 8-time All-Ireland winner and 5-time All-Ireland club winner with Kilkenny and Ballyhale Shamrocks and current Offaly hurling manager Michael Fennelly. Since retiring from his club in May 2020, Michael joins us to chat about life and the impact of COVID has had on him on his management journey so far. Finally, another trailblazer joining us is award-winning sports broadcaster Valerie Wheeler. In a year like no other, Valerie has, like so many others in the media, brought us some of the highs and lows of this year's championship. With media passed with some of the most sought-after games, including Limerick's All-Ireland hurling win, we find out what it's like to work with COVID and what an empty stadium on All-Ireland final day is like. So welcome everybody. Hope you're all well.
Thanks very much. Christina.
So to start off, it's kind of been a bit of a strange year. It's been awful really in some respects. We've been stuck to our rooms on Zoom calls, remotely talking to each other and whatnot. I'm going to start with you, Conor. Just when in March, when everything halted and obviously upsetted your routine, and with targets, with championships so close and whatnot, training sessions postponed and everything just thrown up in the air, did you find it difficult to set new targets and get back into a routine, considering now that you were at home?
I suppose when we found out initially in March that training had to postpone and things, obviously individually we kept tipping away at a bit of physical stuff, and obviously we couldn't join up with anyone else, so you kind of had to do things on your own. So that's what we were doing for the first few weeks, and that was okay because it was something different and it was only for a few weeks, so you just got stuck into it. But then once we found out there was no fixtures, we kind of pulled the plug on it. And yeah, to be honest with you, I really enjoyed the lockdown. I took to it really well. It was probably my first proper break in about 10 seasons. So like, I know it's been a difficult time, outside of sport for a lot of people, but personally, I just really enjoyed it. I got a break mentally, I got a break physically, and I just totally switched off from football for a while. Now I was always doing a bit myself, keeping some way fit, but I just found the break mentally more than anything was just unbelievable. And I found then when it was time to come back that I was that bit hungrier and fresher and hit the ground running. So the lockdown was good for me. Because like I said, it gave me a break and stuff like that. So I actually enjoyed it, to be honest.
Did you find you were more motivated then following on after lockdown when you had to go back training with your club? Or?
Yeah, I think once we got dates and fixtures for matches, I think that made things a lot easier, and you could kind of switch back on then mentally, because you had a target and you had a date in mind. So once we got the fixtures, I think you switched on again and you went harder again, and you knew you'd be back training collectively with the lads in a certain period of time. So it was up to you to be in shape once you took to the field. So yeah, it definitely made things easier once we had the fixtures. And like, we only had a 4-week period of training collectively before we had our first game. So there wasn't a lot of time there to train collectively. So there was a massive onus on each player to come back in decent shape. And I think what you found over the championship is that the teams that have actually taken to the lockdown well and came back better than everyone else, they seem to be the teams that were in the latter end of the championship,
Yeah. And Michael, obviously you retired then in May. Were you envious of the lads that they got that break, and maybe it was a break that you mightn't have got when you were playing, or was it something? Did you find it easier to adjust to retirement resulting from COVID and everybody else not training?
Yeah, Christine, I suppose I was after finishing in January in terms of the club All Ireland. It was in around maybe the middle of January. And I suppose, the question mark was there. Was I going to retire or not? But probably deep down, I knew I was going to. I was probably 80-90% sure at that stage. But I said I'd leave it off for a few weeks or a few months and see what happens. As I was managing Offaly, and I was kind of straight away into that about 2 nights after the All Ireland. So my focus was completely there. So I kind of just similar to what Conor was saying, I kind of switched off from the club side of things and just focused solely on Offaly. And then I think in around, was it the March, April time, maybe April, May, I just decided, I think it was time enough for me. I just didn't have the motivation, the willpower to go back again and to, I suppose, do all that hard work. My body just wasn't able to go there again, to be honest. And mentally, I don't think I was able to go there either. And maybe it was only maybe a week or two later that we heard the matches were on then in July and in August for the club scene. But I didn't really change my mind at all, to be honest. I just wasn't there and wasn't able to do it. I would have loved to. Again, I'm 35 and I'm not overly past it in terms of age, but I just felt my body was just going to be taking another punishment, and I couldn't go through it again, to be honest.
And do you think maybe in previous years, if you had that break, a bit of a longer break, would that have maybe aided you? Do you think you would have stayed longer, or if you had that longer break?
I'd say it's more inter-counties, probably where the hard hitting and the heavy training sessions come into play. Really, club is not too bad. Like the sessions are tough, obviously, but they're not probably as long. They're not as intense. Whereas inter-county, every training session, is very, very important. So definitely, club you can last longer. If I had to retire earlier from Kilkenny, I've no doubt my career would have lasted a bit longer, I think, with Ballyhale. But just, I suppose, that was a decision I made, and I knew myself, that was going to be something I needed to decide, because I think my last game with Kilkenny, I came off with 3 injuries that day, and I just said, here, I definitely have enough at this stage. It's just my body is just, I won't be able to play club, and I go back, and that was the fact of it. I got 2 years out of it, and I was probably lucky to get those 2 years realistically. And we won 2 Club All-Irelands. You couldn't dream of it, to be honest, So I did finish on a really high note, and that's a help as well, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm just going to bring in Valerie here now eventually. Obviously during lockdown we've seen that the media got creative with its content and innovative, and obviously we had a couple of reeling in the ears with some programs on RT and stuff like that. Did you find lockdown aided you to become more creative, and how did you cope with the new content with no live matches and no live broadcasting? Is kind of difficult.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie, it was strange, because when it's part of your job, Christina, you kind of panic a small bit, because you're like, what am I supposed to do now? I know nothing else than be at matches the weekend. So when I was sitting at home, I wondered, what do people do with their weekends that don't like GAA? I'm like, what do they do at all? But you had to get creative. You kind of had to. I know that here in Limerick, we did a thing with Munster J, and we kind of caught up with each players each week, every fortnight, from all of Munster. Conor was one of them. I'm sure he was delighted to get the call. But there was only so much of that you can do, because then that was our first lockdown. We decided to do the Munster J videos, but then when there was no light at the end of the tunnel and we weren't getting our matches back, we felt like, okay, we need to leave the players alone now, because there's no fixtures, there's nothing happening. So being creative was a massive thing, and I found it so difficult, I'm not going to lie, because when you're so used to going to matches and reporting and meeting everybody, for you to be stuck at home, it was a very lonely few weeks. And I know obviously the lads really enjoyed it, because their bodies are the ones running around the place. I'm not exactly, running around. I run around afterwards really to annoy them, but I'm not the one running around the pitch or going to training 5 or 6 nights a week. So I can understand why they liked the break, whereas I was still hungry to go to matches. I was still missing them. I still, you still had to try and bring up content and stuff. So it was difficult to try and be creative, because there's only so much matches you can talk about and replay, and so what we did our best as we could. And I think that, a lot of medias did probably step up their game, and things have changed now the way we broadcast. Everything is online, it is on Zoom, and to be honest, probably access to the players became a bit easier, because now, if before you'd probably meet them in person, they say, they'd probably pawn you off saying, sorry, we can't meet. But now you're like, when suits you, let's do a Zoom, so you kind of do a lot of things online now, and it's hard for them to say no, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. And you talk about not being able to, obviously you can talk to people here, but you find missing the supporters for, maybe like their opinions and what they think of the matches. Did you find that kind of strange this year?
No, of course. And I think that fans are everything when it comes to the game. And I think a lot of us probably realised that over the last few weeks when we're at games, especially last weekend at the All-Ireland final. It's very hard for commentators and broadcasters to do their job when you don't have that big atmosphere around you. On All-Ireland final day, the stands are rocking. You can nearly feel your feet vibrating above in the press box. It's so crazy, because in the press box, you have to be quiet, and there's no county colours allowed. So you have to remain biased above there. But the fans around you really bring the hype. And if you are commentating or if you're doing a report and you've all that around you, you get so excited, you get so into it. But it was very hard to do that on Sunday because of having no one around you. You can't be roaring and shouting in the press box with no fans around you. So it was very, very strange. And like that, I think the diehard fans probably found it really difficult as well, sitting at home, not being able to go, and family and friends. I can't imagine how difficult it was. And, you know, I even said it myself to a few of them up there Sunday, like we did feel privileged to be there over the last few weeks. And as tough as it was for families to be able to sit at home, I did feel like you were a bit of a fraud sitting there, you know, and I think people probably thought you're a bit of a fraud because they wanted to go. But look, someone had to bring the action to them. And I think they were more than happy just to probably be able to watch it on TV or listen to it on their local radio as always. But yeah, it's very, very strange about the fans.
Yeah. And even coming back to you, Conor, like you were playing with your club first, and then obviously there was the split between the club and the county. Did you find it hard to keep into contact with the lads when you were playing? Obviously you were sticking with your club and then you're going back to your county. Did you find the kind of not so much friendships, but the communication and the bond was a little bit weaker? Or was it stronger, do you think? Because obviously you did so well this year as well. So do you think it strengthened you? Or
well, I wouldn't say it weakened us. I definitely wouldn't say that. Just while we're on the club thing, like this year was the first time I actually felt like a real club player in a long time, because I actually got to train with the lads from my own club. Normally, you know, you'd only get to go back maybe the week before a championship match, and that's not really ideal. It's not ideal for them because they haven't seen you, and you're going back and you're obviously going to be a starter because, you know, you're an inter-county player and you're just kind of, you could be upsetting things more than actually adding to it. But this year, like, I got a proper, would say, a month, 5-6 weeks training with the club before we played any game. And that was unbelievable. And just even the crack we had, like, it just brought me back to when I was a young fella going down playing with the lads. So that was, you know, if the GA are to take anything from this year, it's definitely that a split season is the way to go. And it looks like it's going to be that way going forward. But to get back to your original question, no, I don't think the time apart did us any harm, because, like, when you're in that inter-county bubble, you're in it for about 8 or 9 months. So, like, it's nice to get a break from each other every now and then, because you're with each other like at least 4 or 5 nights a week, you know. So I just think the break probably did us all the world of good. And when you come back then, like I said earlier on, you're just that bit fresher, that little bit hungrier. And thankfully for us, we came back in decent shape. And a lot of that was to do with, you know, we had, I know I played 6 games in 6 weeks. And a lot of lads would have played 8 or 9 games in the same amount of weeks. So thankfully we all came through it without any serious injuries, and we were actually in good shape, which is a bonus again, you know.
And just to pick up on that point, Michael, did you find it hard to kind of not be, obviously the inter-county season, you were only allowed contact with your players from September. Did you find it difficult to hold that back a little bit? Were you raring to go and hungry to go, and trying to hold that back was probably difficult?
Yeah, definitely. I suppose, Christina, you're probably inter-county managers. We want control over things, you know. Conor will know all about that as a player, like, and as a player not so long ago myself. Like, you want to, like, you're trying to control, I suppose, what they're doing and making sure they're doing the best of everything, really, like, you know. And I suppose we have our hearts are in the right place, but I suppose sometimes we can be too overpowering or over controlling. And for me, I suppose when we did stop hurling, you know, we did do some individual work and we had a bit of crack for a few weeks. But I pretty much early kind of stopped it, because I just felt like, look, there was a lot of uncertainty here. There was a lot of health issues going on, and I felt, look, players shouldn't be risking going out. And obviously exercise, you know, in a safe way as much as possible, but I wasn't pushing it too hard. And I just felt maybe mentally they needed to switch it off as well, because sometimes if the manager's constantly on week, you know, that's going to do nothing for their own motivation levels, and they just get mentally fatigued, and obviously that will lead to physically fatigued as well. So yeah, I was obviously at home waiting to go, really, and, you know, and unfortunately, Offaly had another mini lockdown during the club season, so that's we didn't get to play the county finals up there, and they have to play it now potentially next year. So that's a small bit of a headache now that's kind of continuing on over into the new year. But, like, it is what it is. Offaly couldn't do anything about it. Cases were on the rise, and I suppose the government had to go in and try and, you know, nullify it. Laois, I think, are in the same boat as well. So it was very challenging, you know. But players, you know, are very trustworthy, and they knew themselves they had to keep ticking over as much as possible. But challenging for everyone. And look, thankfully we got our games, inter-county games, after the club one, and we had a great winter's hurling.
And just to pick up on that point, and maybe to bring Valerie in here, did you find it helpful that there was live streaming of the games, and you were able to see the club games and see the lads in action, given the fact that everybody had to be abiding by guidelines and whatnot?
Yeah, like awfully thankfully streamlined their games, so I got to see pretty much all of them. But no, it was great. Like you couldn't go to, even if you wanted to go to all of them, you couldn't go to them because a lot of them were on at the same time. So the streamline was super, and I think technology would have came on an awful lot for a lot of clubs in terms of the streamlining, and obviously those companies coming in and been able to do it. Awfully have done that previously in the year last year in 2019, so they were accustomed to it already. So it wasn't overly difficult for them. They just wanted to get more games live streamed, so they were in a good position on that side of things. So no, it was great to see it, but you can't beat being there and actually physically seeing the game and how it's what's happening when the ball is on the far side and what's happening on the other side. You get a better feel for how players are going. So there's advantages and disadvantages.
And then just bring Valerie in on that point. Do you think there's more opportunities then for people who want to get into media and into sports media now as a result of maybe COVID? Maybe there's from this live streaming, and it's something that everybody seems to be keen to hold on to.
No, definitely. I think that like without the live streaming, a lot of people wouldn't have seen anything at all. And I think it was important that people were able to see their loved ones or their sons or their daughters or boyfriends, girlfriends playing, whatever it was. But I was involved in some of the camogie streaming and some of the local like Limerick club scene here and the streaming, and to watch the numbers coming in every night and see a couple of thousand watching it. It was just great because everyone was home and everyone was doing nothing. So why wouldn't you turn it on? But like Michael said, nothing does beat being there, but at the same time I think a lot of people will continue to do the live stream. I know that it's been so big for camogie this year. I mean, camogie, I think it's a bit of a shame in a way that it probably took a bit of a pandemic for people to tune into camogie. But if that's what it takes, and if people are more and more inclined to tune into a camogie game now because of they've seen the talent that the players have been able to showcase down to the years, I mean, there's some amazing scores and points that we would not have seen if anyone didn't live stream these games. And I know there's clips of Caught Devan going viral with her hurley, and other players getting goals that no one would have ever seen. And it's just so important that we showcase the talent of the girls as well, just as much as the lads, because they're putting in the 5 or 6 nights a week as well. So it's important that people are seeing those things. But it's interesting to see now, will this live streaming continue? I think it will for the club. And I know that RT and the likes of TG Carr are great to be picking up the inter-county scene. But if you can't make a club game and they do the live stream, or it was great for even people were tuning in from New York and Australia, people seeing their club playing. So I don't know, all that, as Michael mentioned, there is advantages and disadvantages to it, but it'll be interesting to see what happens and will people keep it going.
Yeah, it was definitely very good. I know people from Dubai and everywhere were watching, and it was great to see your own club even, that you mightn't see the whole time as well. So moving on, obviously Tipperary have had a fantastic campaign this year. You've made history with your Munster Championship and stuff like that. I heard David Power this morning say that there's still a buzz around the county and that people are stopping them in Clonmel and whatnot. Is it like, what's this going to do for Tipperary football? Obviously, like, are you still feeling the buzz around the county? And do you think it'll be a massive what's the word I'm looking for? A massive boost for football in the county in obviously years to come?
They're burning hurdles up there, Christine, so they are.
If I could get my hands on more of them, I'd burn them.
Depends on what stage of the county you're in.
And we're kicking footballs across the border.
Yeah, listen, it's obviously it's been incredible. There's still a good buzz around it. It's a pity that we're obviously in the situation and scenario that we are, because just coming up to Christmas now, you might get out and about for a few pints and things, and you might be able to meet people, but it's not going to happen this year, unfortunately. But with regards, like, what's it going to do for the county? I don't know, to be honest with you, Christina. I don't know. Will it change things a whole pile, to be honest? We've been in certain scenarios before, like we got to an All-Ireland semi-final 4 years ago. We thought that might change the scenery a little bit, but it didn't. Obviously, winning Munster this year was massive, and that might change things even more. But look, I think if you want to play football for Tip, you're going to play. I think that's just the bottom line. I don't think it's going to change a whole pile. It might just keep some of the younger lads who might have the option to hurl at minor 21s. It might just keep them interested in football for the next couple of years. But personally, I don't see it having a massive a massive difference down the line. But listen, for this group of players, it was massive to finally get over the line. You know, we'd be chasing it a long time, and you could easily say that like retaining our Division 3 status was just as important this year as a Munster title, because if we had gone down to Division 4, like it would have been a disaster, you know. And what chance of you getting young lads playing football if you're in Division 4, you know? So all around it's been very positive. There's still a great buzz around. And like I say, like I'm really happy for this current group of players who've, you know, really soldiered the cause for a long time. So even though it mightn't change things massively down the line, I just think it's fantastic for this moment in time, especially with, you know, the 100-year anniversary and everything that went on in, you know, 100 years ago with Michael Hogan and everything. Like you couldn't have wrote it. Like, you know, we were playing in Croke Park like a day off 100 years, you know, to the date. So it was incredibly emotional, and one that will live long in the memory, that's for sure.
Definitely. And do you think that gave you kind of maybe a psychological edge? The fact that it was 100 years, maybe it might have drove you on a little bit more?
Honestly, I don't think so. I don't think so. Like, it was really, we had to be really careful once we bet Limerick in the Munster semi-final, because we now found ourselves coming off a high, you know, a good victory against Limerick, and all of a sudden you're in a provincial final. And for a lot of the players in our panel, it would have been their first Munster final experience. And that in itself was a difficult challenge, and then you have everything that goes along with it. Like we were told we were wearing a different jersey, you know. Then the Michael Hogan things, the 100 years, Bloody Sunday comes into it, and it would have been very easily for us to get distracted, you know. But I kind of made sure that the lads kind of were focused on what was really important. And I suppose as a player and as captain of the team, you need to realise, without being too disrespectful, what's really important. And for us, that was winning the match first and foremost. And I think we got our mentality right. Our heads were good going into the match, and you know, from minute one there was only going to be one team winning that match, and it's only after you win then you kind of, you know, let it sink in and realise the importance and the emotion of Bloody Sunday. But prior to it, some players might have taken an extra bit of motivation from it, Christina. But personally, you know, I didn't have to dig too far for motivation. Like, I'd never won a Munster Championship. It was only my second ever appearance. So, like I said, I didn't have to dig too far for motivation. But there was kind of maybe just, you could just feel it as well, you know, for the year that was in it, you could just feel there was that extra little bit, you know, around the county. So it probably helped in some shape or form, but I just think on the day, like, we were mentally tuned in, and we were never going to lose it, to be honest.
Yeah. So Conor speaks there of the Bloody Sunday being a massive standout point for the year, winning Munster, and that obviously there's been very different standout points, and the penalty shootout being one of them, being something new that the GAA are doing. What has stood out for you in a year that's been obviously full of different highs and lows?
Yeah, with highs and lows and uncertainty, and unfortunately Conor came out with silverware and we didn't, so there's a big old difference there. But I think, all in all, I think the GAA done really, really well this year in terms of dealing with COVID, dealing with putting our games back on, and as Conor alluded to, was actually putting the club first. They could have easily probably went with inter-county first, and they could have controlled that better, I'd say, because you had less people obviously playing at that level, and to see how actually that would have ran at that time in around maybe July and August. But to be fair, they made a decision, I think, and maybe the decision they made was, let's for once put the club first. Now let's start focusing more on the club. And personally, I was delighted myself. I'm a club man. As I said, I just retired that year. And even though I'm managing, I suppose, a bit of conflict there with myself, I just felt it was the right thing to do for the GAA, and let the lads go play with their clubs, play with their friends, and hopefully have a really good club championship. And up in Offaly, they did have that, which was great. And I suppose for myself then, it was the management and I suppose the planning of the drip feed of players that'll come back into us every week or so. And, you know, in some cases we'd only 12 train with us and that, so there was huge, you know, challenging points there. And then lads come back with injuries, and then we had a whole mini lockdown, and we had to wait another week or two, so we still have small numbers. So very, very challenging, but at the same time we never panicked, and, you know, we're never giving out. We're just blessed to be training, blessed to be back playing, and very lucky to have games that we were looking forward to. We had I suppose we had an unfortunate case then where we had one COVID case, and unfortunately the whole panel and backroom team were made close contact. So that was you know, a big part as well of our championship, that we had to forfeit our first championship match deal. But again, we didn't use that as an excuse. We said, look, we'll get back when we're all back in a week and a half or so. First time Offaly had scored 32 points in championship, which was good to see. And then I suppose the down game was coming the following week back up in Newry again, where we were the week previous, and I suppose we're all driving individually up there as well. And probably for me, is just the social side of things for the players in particular, and maybe Conor will talk about this. Like, the social aspect was pretty much nearly gone out of the game, and I think the games were more for the public and more for the the supporters. For the players, I think it was tough on them, because you were coming to training togged out, you were leaving leaving with your clothes on you, you couldn't go to the gym. There's a lot of challenges for players there, and on a mental side of things, massively. And as I said, like, the reason we play is because we enjoy it and the social aspect, and that was kind of nearly it was taken out of it, and that was due to COVID. So I think that was very difficult. And look, we're leading in now to next year, inter-counties potentially going first, and I suppose, will we have those guidelines again that we have to adhere to? And I suspect we will, where players will have to do a lot of individual work again by themselves. And again, the social aspect of it won't be there. You'll have league games coming up end of February, and I suspect you'll be travelling on your own again. Like, we heard of Kerry's first game was driving to Monaghan, I think, for the first one in their league match. So yeah, if Conor wants to touch on that, I don't know what was first.
Yeah, I think like we said earlier on, there's definitely going to be pros and cons from this whole thing. Obviously, a negative, and it's a major negative, you touched on it there, is just the whole social side of things. You obviously don't get to spend as much time with your teammates as you normally would have, because the dressing rooms was an issue, the showers were an issue, eating your meal afterwards was an issue. All those things are now kind of gone. So those are the times when you actually got to sit down and have a chat with the boys, pre and post training sessions. So that was all altered. What I would say is, like, and I think a lot of inter-county teams might learn from it going forward. I think even on match days, as a panel, like, we arrived to matches a lot later, and we ate our pre-match meal at home. And I just find, like, that was something that really worked for us personally. I love that. Like, in previous years, we'd be meeting up in a hotel 3.5 hours before the match to eat chicken and pasta, whereas now you're trusted at home to have the meal yourself, and you arrive onto the venue maybe a good hour and a half later. That's definitely a positive that we took from it, because I just find some of those days can be training. You're meeting up in a hotel way too long before the match. You're hanging around. You're getting bored. You're doing video analysis. I mean, the video analysis for us was literally cut in half this year, and we managed. And I think that's the bottom line. We managed, like, everything that was thrown at us. We managed, and I think we're very good to adapt when things are put, when our backs are to the wall. So definitely the social side of things was probably one of the more negative things. But what I would say is, like, I kind of found the whole lockdown as a challenge more than anything. Like, I wanted to embrace it. I found it as, like, right, I'm going, how can I get better here? And, like, it started by taking a break. It started by switching off. And then once we had dates and things in mind, I switched back on. And I think it's all about balance. But definitely, I think inter-county managers will learn an awful lot in terms of, like, meeting up before matches, video analysis, all these things we put a lot of hours into. I think we can condense it down a little bit. And I would say the same for the inter-county season as a whole. I think, like, we managed this year, from September to now. And I think the GA will learn a lot from it, to be honest with you. I hope they do, and I really do.
Yeah, it's very insightful. And Valerie, have you any standout points from the year? Anything you find that was an opportunity, maybe Sunday game potentially?
Yeah, God, I'm still not over the Sunday game, to be honest. I think it was like the lads. I think my opportunity for the Sunday game was supposed to start in March, and I hadn't really told anybody because I didn't want the pressure of anyone knowing, because for me it's like a life goal to be on the Sunday game. So I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. So I had months and months of waiting for my opportunity to get my hands on the Sunday game. So once I was sitting at home going, that should be me in the Sunday game, why isn't it on? But eventually, once fixtures started to reappear, and finally once championship came back, I did get the opportunity. And I must say, like, it's very overwhelming. I think, like, when you, like, the lads, it's like them winning something. It's like my All-Ireland is like getting to the Sunday game. So I must say it's been great. I've had a good run of it. I think I've had 3 months of it now, which is, I think there's 5 or 6 Sunday games. So it was nice to get a run of it as well, to go in. Like it's daunting. It's like heading into an All-Ireland final because you don't know anyone inside, or you don't know what to expect, and people could think you're crap, and people could think what you're putting into your match report is wrong. So you'd probably pick what goes into the report. You'd pick the scores. You'd pick, you'd sit down with a video editor and you'd be like, okay, I want that score. I want this play. I want this. So people are always, I don't know, there'll always be someone giving out, no matter what you do in life. So you're just going to have to trust your own instinct and trust your gut with what you're putting into your report is the best bits, and hope for the best. So yeah, you're dead right, Christina. The Sunday game was probably my my opportunity this year. I don't think it can get much better than that, to be honest, for me. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'm going to just finish up with a final question for the three of you. Obviously we kind of focus our work with a lot of young people, and some young people have dealt with setbacks this year and whatnot. I'm going to come to you first, Michael. Would you have any advice for any young people who are kind of struggling and have felt that that COVID has set them back a bit, and maybe look at the opportunities that could be as a result,
Yeah, I think it's been very challenging for younger people. Like we got our games back, and a lot of games for the underage was cancelled, and I think they've gone through a lot more turmoil than we have, to be honest. I know our under 20s and minor came back, let's say, for example, just only maybe 2 weeks ago. So very, very challenging for them, and I suppose they've been asked to do certain things maybe throughout the year and train maybe for certain periods when there was no end in sight, So I just think sometimes, and Conor again, I would touch on it. Maybe just go out and enjoy it. Don't be taking on too much. Don't be taking on pressure. There's no need a lot of time. We play sport to enjoy it. You're developing as well as a young player, so you're not reaching your pinnacle yet. Your pinnacle is down years and years and years. Learn an awful lot from watching games and what players do, and obviously we've had great matches over the last number of weeks, and even personally myself, you'll be looking at some players in terms of what they can do, their engine levels, their skill levels, so you're always kind of learning and watching, and that's it really, here in some shape or form. The GA is never going to go away, so it's just about enjoying it really, Christine, and not to get too caught up in that side of things. We'll be back playing hopefully next year at some stage, but even if we're not underage for the first couple of months, don't worry about it. There's still other things that we can do exercise-wise to keep the minds fresh, and it'll create a bigger appetite to play Gaelic football or hurling or camogie or ladies football.
Definitely. And Conor, I suppose you've seen a lot of young people as being a school teacher and that. Again, any advice from what you've seen and what you've seen what young people are going through?
Yeah, it's tough, but I suppose from a school's perspective, when we were back in school, we made a conscious decision as a school to go ahead with PE and to go ahead with hurling and football training, because we just felt it's what the boys would have wanted. We're an all boys school, so we just felt the safest place for them was out in the fresh air. So we wanted to get them out there as much as we can. And in previous years, I'm involved with the senior football team, and in previous years, sometimes you might struggle to get the 5th and 6th years motivated. You'd love to see them drive it on, and it would also be down to you and the other coaches. But what we've seen now, Christina, when we came back to school, we've just seen players drive it because they've realised how much they've missed it, and the penny's finally dropping now that you can't take these things for granted. So whereas you might have lads, taking the easy option, not going training after school because it was raining or whatever, the lads are absolutely bulling for it now, and they're driving everything. They're on time for training, which is incredible. They're never on time. They're always late, but this year they're actually early for training because I think the penny has dropped. I think it's just been such a difficult year for them, being at home for so long without their friends. I mean, I they're definitely taking school for granted, but they realise now how important actually school is, and them as well as teachers, we all just want to be in school now because we realise how hard it is, and you can't beat being around your friends. And if there's anyone out there listening who's struggling at the moment, just talk to someone, talk to a friend, talk to anyone at all, and just get it off your chest. Look, I found it difficult myself at times, but look, just talk to someone, whether it's a partner or anything at all, and just get it off your chest. But I would encourage a bit of fresh air, a bit of activity as much as possible. It doesn't have to be hurling or football. Just get out and go for a walk or a run. It's great to clear the head. And listen, things will get back to normal hopefully in the new year at some stage, and we can all get back to enjoying the things that we've enjoyed doing for years. Please God and I.
Yeah, and just to Valerie, obviously as youth refs, we see a lot of youth refs that want to stay involved in the GAA, but necessarily don't really want to play. They might just want to stay involved, and in a position like you, maybe with being creative and in the media and stuff like that. Have you any advice how people could maybe, bring it on and drive on what they want to do?
Yeah, no, I'd only love to see more people involved and more young people getting involved in media. And I think it's great. And I think over the last year or so, we've seen more and more women involved, not just men. So I'm like, the more women, the better. But I suppose it's been an overwhelming year for everybody. And I think that so much was expected of us. And I think that, if it's something you're interested in, and like I've still so much to learn. Like, I'm only at this myself, Christina, 3 years. So I know that I have a long way to go myself. But I think the more hard work you put in and the more games you watch and the more people you meet and the more, people you like say hello to, and all you need to do is kind of network and get to know the right people, I think, as well, and if anyone ever has any questions on how to get into media, I'm more than happy to answer them, because I was in childcare before I was in media, and I knew it wasn't the right thing for me. And I'd say I was about 3 or 4 years in childcare, and I was like, this isn't for me at all. I need to change. And sure, now look, I'm so happy I did make the change, because or else I'd be stuck inside in childcare, and it wouldn't be fair on those kids either, to be honest, Christina, not to mind just me. But yeah, I think it'd be great to see more people involved in whether it's journalism or broadcasting or whatever it is, production side of things. There's room for everyone, and I think anyone in media would be more than happy to help them. And it'd be great to see young people up and coming towards the media, because we're not that bad. I know people think we're not that bad, lads. Are we? The boys might disagree now. They're being very quiet.
just on what Valerie was saying there, like, I think it's so important that you're happy with whatever you're doing. I know personally, when we went back training after the lockdown, like, training was just so enjoyable. And I think management and coaches have to take, great credit for that, because you're coming off the back of something difficult. So, like, lads are making a great effort to be there. So, like, you have to enjoy what you're doing. And, like, the more enjoyable you can make training, whatever age group it is, I just think that the more you're going to get from your players as well,
Yeah, that's a great point to finish up on. Just before we finish, we have a quick fire round we do with every podcast at the end. So there's 6 questions. I'm just going to ask the question and then ask all 3 of you to answer it. So the first one is, what's your match day essential? I'll go to you first, Michael.
Cornflakes in the morning for breakfast.
In the microwave or?
No, just cold milk. Fine.
Connor?
I'd say the coffee. No, that's probably an everyday essential, not just match days, but I have to get a coffee on the way. Yeah, definitely. Cappuccino.
Well, currently at the moment, I think the face mask. The face mask is the essential at the moment. But other than that, I'd have a load of chocolate in my bag to keep me going throughout the match.
Yes, Valerie, love that one.
Keep you warm, son.
Yeah, loads of chocolate. I can't stop eating during the game. It's like I'm at a cinema, lads. So.
And what's your go-to pre-match song, Valerie?
Pre-match song? Oh God. I do love the Chainsmoker Roses. I don't know if the lads know that. I feel like that gets me pumped on the way to a match. Not that I'd be doing anything on the pitch, but maybe for my interviews it gets me a bit excited.
And Michael?
Pre-match, I'm not sure, to be honest, Christina. I don't have a song as such, but after a game, what we used to do with Ballyhale was just listen to Shallow after our game, so that's any good post-match. So
you don't want to sing it first now, no?
How depressing, Michael.
And Connor?
Bit of Whitney Houston, I think, or a bit of ABBA. Unbelievable stuff.
So Whitney Houston and Shallow is great. So favourite GA ground, Connor?
Crow Park has to be. Just like I played in all of them now at this stage. I played in Páirc Uí Chaoimh this year, and the surface was unbelievable. But Crow Park, for just the surface alone, the stadium, just the atmosphere, hands down the best yet.
And Michael?
Yeah, the Coliseum, Crow Park, you can't get any better than this, Christina. Probably one of the best stadiums in Europe, even, like, so fabulous place to be and fabulous place to play. So it won't ever get to play there again, unfortunately. But anyway, hopefully be on the sideline at some stage.
You got there enough, so.
Good moment, Christina.
And Valerie?
Where are you from, Christina? Michael wants to know, I think.
What county?
Carlow,
neighbours. I thought you'd be sporting us there, giving us the old.
No, I wouldn't know.
For myself, I do enjoy going to Thurles. I must say I do like Simple Stadium, but for the atmosphere and as a reporter, of course, you want to be in Croke Park. You want to be there in the big days.
And what's your favourite sporting memory or happiest sporting memory? Michael, we'll go to you first.
Happy sporting memory. Okay, I'd say probably any of the Club All Irelands out of 5 of them in Croke Park with the family and friends, and the whole of Ballyhale up in Croke Park. So that's a real special time, and to have them all in the stand there, it's very surreal, very unusual, to be honest, for that, like, you know, such a small cohort of people all together up in Croke Park. You know, a great time to rob Ballyhale now if you're looking at it. Yeah, very, very, very special time out of those 5.
And Valerie?
Oh God, I was going to say the last time Cork won in All Ireland, but I'll be thinking back a good time now at this stage.
That's a long time Valerie now.
Yeah, I know I'm getting too far back, but I must say, as a reporter, my first All Ireland was, when was it? I think it was 2018 Limerick's win.
With Tommy Welch, interviewing Tommy Welch, chatting with Tommy Welch.
Yeah. Do you know what? Tommy Welch is absolutely great to be with. So any game you're at Tommy Welch, I'll say good man, Michael.
He's promoting his own side here as well.
Yeah.
Tommy's a Jew.
Has to be this year for me, I'd say, Christina. I had a few, all right, but when you're chasing something as long as we've been, I'd say just this year probably tops it, you know.
Perfect. Childhood hero, Conor, we'll go to you again.
Oh God, I've actually been asked this a lot. I never really had one. Like within my own county, a lot of people say, "Oh, would you not pick Declan Brown?" But I don't remember Declan playing really. To be honest with you, I only have a couple of vague memories. I'm sure he was, from the videos I've seen, he was unbelievable, but I don't really recall. I just remember growing up loving the Gooch. I just thought he was probably one of the most complete footballers at the time, and you know, he was, you know, never the biggest, never the quickest, but he'd the best head on his shoulders, and just by far just a top finisher for me. So yeah, probably like someone like the Gooch at the time.
Yeah, and Valerie?
To be honest, as a young girl, there wasn't a lot of girls for me to look up to in the sporting world or outside of it, because there wasn't really much coverage of the games. But nowadays, if you're young and you're a girl, there's so many people you can look up to. So if I was to choose someone now, maybe not when I was younger, I wouldn't have any, but I would pick Katie Taylor. I do think she's fairly up there for me.
Yeah. And Michael?
Similar to Conor, actually, I never really had a standout kind of role model as such. Funnily enough, like I never really remember thinking of anyone like that, you know, back when I was a kid and stuff. But probably, you know, as I did get older, the likes of Pat O'Neill, you know, he's a former Kilkenny kind of centre back, full back. He kind of stood out in my mind, and obviously DJ Carey would have came about then as well, like, you know, in terms of what he used to do in games and his speed and, you know, his creativity. So he definitely would have stood out. And thankfully, my own club mate then, Henry Schiffman, like, you know, as I got older, was in my teenager, maybe late teens, he was coming onto the senior team, and, you know, very exciting, been up in the hill, you know, supporting one of your own club players, like, you know. So probably I would have evolved from that, like.
And the last question then is, what is your biggest pet peeve? Valerie will ask you.
My biggest pet peeve in life, or in what? What are we going with?
What's the context?
anything, like what really gets on your nerves and you're just like, no.
A pet peeve. Oh my God, this is really difficult. People who chew loudly. Maybe I just want to pan them out.
Yeah, I hate that as well.
God, it drives me insane.
They're great on you. Yeah, no, it's the same. Certainly not. Weirdly enough, but that's, I can't even.
I have one. My partner will, when she'll light a match and she'll use it to light a candle or whatever, and she'll put the used match back into the box with the rest of them. I can't get over it.
So you just want to try the box anyways.
Yeah, when you go to the box the next time, you're scrummaging around to see if you get one. Oh, it's horrendous.
I'd have a habit of cracking. I have eggs most morning, but I crack the egg, but I always put the shells back in the box.
No.
And again, the people I've lived with over the years wouldn't be popular either now, to be honest. With them, it doesn't bother me in the slice.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that concludes our podcast recording this evening. Just want to say a quick thank you to our department, Kaylee Nowosky and Jeremy Cattle, who have been so helpful to the youth reps in coordinating the podcast, and to my chairperson, Anya McParland, who has helped us, and Emma Wheeler, who has edited all the podcasts for us across the series. This is the final in our series. If you want to keep in contact with what the GA youth reps are doing, just head over to the website ga.ie/youth, GA youth. So that's it, and thanks to the guys for joining us this evening.